to another episode of Open World Chat. I am your host, Jim Dandino. Our regular co-host, John Odom, is cooling his heels north of the border while the fuzz loses interest. But I am joined today by my old boss, current writer for SuperHeroHype, the AV Club, Films Gone Wild, and Bunker 15 Films, and former boss at Topless Robot, eventually the robot's voice, Luke Thompson. Luke, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Luke Y. Thompson. I'll just add the middle initial because otherwise my name is so generic it pops up a billion people when you search it.
It's true. I apologize, and I knew that too, and I'm a dumbass for getting that wrong. But I'm looking at the Zoom screen, and I threw myself off. Luke is joining us today to talk about Obi-Wan, the Disney Plus show, and doing some general Disney Star Wars talk. Luke, to start with, how did a franchise that began with A New Hope end up in a place that was full of sad old man regret?
People got old. The actors got old, so that's what happened. Also, one of the traps of franchises right now, Disney trapped themselves when they said all canon counts. So the comics, the novels, all of it, they can't move forward because they want to give whoever does the next chronological movie the freedom to create the next thing. So none of that stuff can move forward beyond the last movie. So they keep having to revisit moments in the timeline that there are already holes in or that we've already been to. Back when we were younger and they had, Heir to the Empire, Shadows of the Empire, all that. Shadows of the Empire, they tried to say at the time was canon, unlike all the other stuff, but they could have Luke Skywalker and Han Solo go off on adventures and not worry that it was going to affect Return of the Jedi because it wasn't technically canon and George Lucas was free to contradict it. And there already are contradictions in the all canon counts, just even minor things. The novelization of The Force Awakens, Poe and Rey meet, and then in The Last Jedi, Poe and Rey meet for the first time at a different point. So it's not, they've already trapped themselves in a corner, and that's why it's not purely sad old man regret, but that's why they keep revisiting previous points in the timeline, because they've trapped themselves so that only the movies can go forward.
So, but I guess my concern here, and it's not really a concern, my issue here is there are pieces of this that they've done so well, right? The Darth Vader comics are almost universally spectacular. The Fallen Order is one of my favorite Star Wars video games of all time. But the stuff that the shows in particular keep poking around at, I want to preface it by saying I really enjoyed Obi-Wan. I thought it actually had something to say about us and about Star Wars canon in and of itself. But I have ranged from completely bored and disinterested to actively loathing most of the other Star Wars stuff that has come out, most of the other live action Star Wars stuff that has come out since they moved to Disney.
Really? You didn't like The Mandalorian at all?
I hated it. I didn't hate it. I was bored to tears by 3/4 of it, and I was actively offended by a couple of episodes. The Seven Samurai episode is one of the worst things I've ever forced myself to sit through. It was just so transparent and incompetent and uninteresting. It was like a shitty cover band version of Seven Samurai.
Well, I mean, A New Hope is considered, in some ways, a shitty cover band version of The Hidden Fortress. So,
yeah, but A New Hope wasn't. Well, first of all, A New Hope was like me hearing the Jimi Hendrix cover of All Along the Watchtower, right? That was, yes, it was a cover of a million different things, but it was first of all, it was new to me, and it was remixed in an interesting way, right? It was remixed in a creative and inventive way. It was a cover that sang the same notes in the same way, but without any of the passion or verve. And that episode was where I started to kind of lose interest in the live action Disney Plus Star Wars stuff.
Just to clarify, because there are several episodes with echoes of the Seven Samurai, You mean the one on the planet with blue shrimp and they have a scout walker, and the one
Yes.
that Dallas Howard directed?
Yeah, the Bryce Dallas Howard one. Yeah, that was the one. And
the first Bryce Dallas Howard one. She's done more since.
She's done more Seven Samurai episodes too.
Oh, she's done more episodes of Mandalorian.
Okay, yeah, no, the first Bryce Dallas Howard episode, I know she's good at stuff. She directed the episode of Black Mirror she was in, right?
I didn't see it.
Oh, I think she directed that, and I enjoyed that. And I don't think it was I don't think it was specifically an issue with her directing. I think it was just a bunch of shitty choices that ended up in a place that I really did not enjoy. And that's where Mando started to sour for me. I only made it through 3 episodes of Book of Boba Fett because it was so plotting and wasn't really what I wanted to see out of a Boba Fett story.
I think that's a common thing. I would say it wasn't exactly what I wanted either, but once I got that this is just a Western, it's that's what he's doing. He's doing a Yojimbo kind of thing. Crime lord comes to town and protects his town from other crime lords. And it's like, okay, that's what he's doing. I accept it. Cool. Yeah. Mandalorian I've been more interested in because especially, the stuff with Moff Gideon and the cloning, and it looks like they're going to fill in some gaps there. And then you have the Ring World and the Aqua Planet, the planet that's basically Boston Harbor. And then they're bringing in all the other Mandalorian lore, which it might get too lore heavy, but they brought in Ahsoka. And the best thing of all about the Mandalorian, of course, is it's gotten my wife into Star Wars because of Baby Yoda, which is like when Disney. Here's the funny thing: when Disney Plus launched, the day it launched, she immediately. I'm of course wanting to watch The Mandalorian. I'm dying for that when it starts. She immediately turns it on and starts turning on Lizzie McGuire. And I'm like, God, can you please stop so I can watch The Mandalorian? And I'm like writing on Twitter, I can't watch The Mandalorian because my wife's watching Lizzie McGuire. She saw that. She got really offended. She was like, you better apologize. So I was like, okay, will you please watch The Mandalorian with me? She sits down. She's like, okay, fine. Star Wars, pew, pew, whatever. Okay, my husband's enjoying this. Then, right at the end, oh my God, is that a Baby Yoda?
Who's that? Give him to me. I want him right now. Yep.
Yeah. And then, before there was BB-8 and there was Porgs for her, but Baby Yoda is now, she calls him our Lord and Savior, Baby Yoda.
It's fine. Do you have any prayer candles for him?
No, there should be. Somebody's got to be making prayer candles somewhere for him. I mean, that's got to be a thing that exists on Etsy, if nothing else.
I would 100% put up a picture of Sacred Heart Baby Yoda in my kitchen because that is, I think, the correct flavor of cultural appropriation. So, and I guess my kids haven't started watching Star Wars yet. My oldest is 4.5, and I've tried Phantom Menace a couple of times, and it's still a little too scary for her, so I'm not pushing it too hard. But I do want to step back and obviously recognize that just because I don't like something doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad. It is mostly just not for me.
Kids do like bad things, and it's okay. I mean, I watched the Mr. T cartoon in the 80s. I'm not going to pretend that was objectively good.
Oh yeah, and like trying to go back, I tried to watch the old ThunderCats cartoon.
I've been enjoying that. I thought that was some of the better stuff of that generation, because I'm very much a Masters of the Universe guy, but I was into the toys and I thought the cartoon was kind of silly.
Yeah,
and the opening sequence for ThunderCats is pretty damned impressive for the animation of the time.
The opening sequence, absolutely. Same goes for Transformers the movie. It's some of the best animation from the entire 80s. And actually, I think I saw G.I. Joe the movie recently too, and that animation was excellent. But some of the stuff that they put on the TV, and even in my childhood stuff, was questionable. That was pretty shitty.
But it's funny. Some of the shitty things I'm just amused by now. Like when I was a kid, because I grew up in Europe and I've been all over the world, when a lot of those cartoons have some of the worst fake accents you've ever heard. And that really bothered me as a kid. I was like, that's not what an English person sounds like. That's not what an Australian person sounds like. Now I just find it hilarious. My favorite episode of ThunderCats is Safari Joe, and that's the worst accent in any cartoon. They're just like, Safari Joe does it again. It just cracks me up every time.
At least he tried. So to pull it back to Star Wars, though, like there's lots of stuff. There's lots of stuff that is good and valid, and I don't want to take stuff away from the people who are getting into it from this. It's just it's so weird to have connected with something so completely and totally in not even my youth, but like most of the rest of my life. Like, the prequels sucked, but I was never a total prequel hater. I found value in it. I maintained for a long time that I was confident somebody smart and capable could have cut 1.5 good movies out of all 3 prequels. And it is really unfortunate how much of it turned out to be prophetic about our society.
Yeah.
Oof. But like, just for it to go so completely cold is really weird for me. It's weird for me to experience, and I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this. I'm just sad, and I guess that maybe that's why Obi-Wan resonated with me so much, is because I am also full of sad regret.
I mean, it's weird. I've gone hot and cold too. After Phantom Menace, I felt kind of burned. I was like, this isn't good. I don't like where this is going. The other 2, I got back into it and I was like, okay, I'm back into it. Revenge of the Sith, I still think, is a genuinely good movie. And then with the new ones, I've been kind of hot and cold. I'm one of the ones who liked Rise of Skywalker because it gave me a lot of what I wanted in The Last Jedi, of filling in the gaps of what did they do all this time. It has, Leia becoming a Jedi Master. It fills in, what Palpatine's been doing. And by the way, the Palpatine Snoke thing I really like because, what do we have in real life? We have this leader who projects himself larger than life wearing gold, and he's literally just a fake media creation that's controlled by the soul of dead Ronald Reagan. And that's what the new trilogy is kind of saying.
God, why are they always right? Oh, it's killing me. So yeah. I think maybe part of why I ran so cold was that Rise of Skywalker was so far from what I hoped it would be. I think I really liked Last Jedi. I really liked the message of Last Jedi. And I really think that all of the stuff that has clicked with me, really post-prequels, has been an exploration of where the Jedi Order went wrong and why the Jedi Order failed. And I think Last Jedi kind of put a big, huge flag on that, because Luke tried to recreate the Jedi Order, and it blew up in his face even faster than the old Jedi Order did, because it had all of the exact same problems. It had the lack of human connection. It had, it was not respectful of the sentient beings in the universe and their need for intimate personal relationships. And then to have it just kind of wiped away as, this is actually just a plot by Palpatine coming back. Somehow he returned. Felt like they missed an opportunity to say something more resonant and meaningful about the human condition. And I know that's probably expecting too much out of popcorn flicks, but I'd been getting that out of Star Wars before, right? And yeah. I think that I did not get that out of Rise of Skywalker disappointed me so much, because it was so well teed up in The Last Jedi that it started to make me run cold on all of the live action stuff. And I still like Rebels. I still love the games. I still love the comics, but like Mando and Book of Boba Fett and Solo just really haven't done it for me.
I will say I love Solo, because it felt like 70s George Lucas. It felt like Ron Howard is a guy who worked with him and he got it. It has the hot rod stuff. It has that old school feel of like a 70s movie, but with today's effects that none of the others I thought had. It's my favorite of the Disney era ones. But I see what you're saying about wanting more from the Jedi side in the sequel trilogy. I liked where it went with the First Order side and the cycles of fascism and the cycles of PTSD. I think that was really interesting. And, a lot of people resented the way Leia and Han and Luke were the beginning of The Force Awakens. But of course, they're basically Vietnam veterans with PTSD. And as soon as the thing's over, they go back into the cycle of things they know. Leia knows government, Han knows smuggling, Luke knows being a religious fundamentalist. They retreat to those tracks because those are their habits. And of course they screw up their kids because, war veterans with PTSD did that and do that. And then meanwhile, like I say, Snoke is kind of Trump and the soul of the Republican Party is basically puppeting him. Or you can alternately say he's Putin and the soul of Stalin is puppeting him. You can go with that interpretation as well. And I think initially in 2015, of course, we went with the Putin one because Trump wasn't quite a thing yet. But it went prophetic in that way. I think what I like about the Mandalorian and Boba Fett is that they represent how I played with the toys. And I'm the first generation Star Wars toy guy. I was 3 years old in 1977 when it came out. And I didn't play war and good guys and bad guys with the toys. I played, exploration, just hanging out in the world. Maybe because I was an only child, I didn't have that sort of combat from a sibling. So I wasn't super competitive. And so a show that just kind of hangs out in that world and, has things like the Mandalorian hanging off a sandcrawler while Jawa's just trying to kick him off. Those are the sort of scenarios I would play, and seeing directors who are about my age playing with them literally, I guess, kind of strikes a chord in me. Although I will say, I was never that interested in Obi-Wan as a character. I never really agitated for him having a story or a lead. And yet I liked what they did with him.
So did I. And it didn't feel like justice for the prequels because they didn't need justice. They were fine. They were bad and fine and good on their own. But the fan reaction to the prequels, I think, merited some reconsideration. And I feel like Obi-Wan gave the opportunity for some of those folks to get some reconsideration. The one thing I found really grating, and it is a huge problem I had with Mando, is the robot James Earl Jones voice. I'm really uncomfortable with name and likeness issues like that. But that aside, I thought that Hayden Christensen did a really good job with what he had. And it was nice seeing Ewan McGregor have fun with it. It was nice seeing Jimmy Smits have a good time in a Star Wars, and I kind of really like Kid Leia, as kind of precocious and on the nose as she was. That felt like what I would imagine a 10-year-old Princess Leia would do, right? You see her, they did a good job of showing her developing into, the smartass who would stand up to Darth Vader, who's the only person with the spine to stand up to Darth Vader in A New Hope.
Also like seeing Alderaan too, because we make a big deal in A New Hope about it being destroyed, and we have no idea what we're losing. We never have. Yeah. Even in the Clone Wars, they didn't really touch that much in the cartoons.
Yeah, I don't remember, even the books, I don't remember going to, I don't remember reading, and I was mostly a post-Jedi EU stuff, but I don't remember the books or the comics that I read really digging too deep into Alderaan.
And the Clone Wars, I think, did kind of redeem the prequels in a lot of people's minds, although a lot of the accents on it still drive me nuts. I have that old issue from childhood of the accents driving me nuts because this time they're actually supposed to be good. And we have all this talk about, casting race appropriately now. So The Simpsons and Family Guy have recast their roles of color. And yet we still have a white guy doing all the Maori voices on the Star Wars cartoons. And that kind of bothers me, especially since he doesn't get the accent completely right. And I can tell when he's Bad Batch drives me so nuts that they don't say Omega the way New Zealand people do. So the girl's like, my name's Omega. And they're like, how are you, Omega? It's like, she's New Zealander. Listen to the way she pronounces stuff. Say it that way. I can't laugh at it the way I laugh at Safari Joe yet. But I'm hoping there will be a cartoon that sort of redeems the sequel trilogy in the same way, or at least the new TV shows are filling in the gaps between Jedi in The Force Awakens, and I like the way Mando seems to be going on that. I don't want to rely on the Bad Batch too much to be filling that in, because again, they drive me nuts a little bit. But
I think Ahsoka is going to be the big one there. I think that's the.
yeah,
I mean, it is shaping up to be a live action sequel to Rebels.
yes, basically that's how the casting looks.
Yeah, and I have no choice but to get excited about that. I really liked Rebels a lot, and I really liked, I think it was Topless Robot actually, where I was talking about Clone Wars and how I was not into the cartoon, and somebody in the comments said, just read the episode descriptions and skip anything that has droids in the title or in the description, and you're in good shape. And I did exactly that, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a really good show. And then I went back and watched the droid episodes, and I said, oh my God, they were absolutely right. This would not have been a good show had I not listened to this advice. But like the last 3 seasons of Clone Wars, just bang, just slapped the whole way through. So good. And if Ahsoka can carry that energy into the live action space, I think I'm going to really be into it. And I'm finding myself hoping against hope that it might turn out good.
Like Leia at the end of Rogue One. Hope.
Yep.
Speaking of the digital recreations, I will say they're better with Darth Vader now than the lines they added for Empire Strikes Back Special Edition, which still infuriate me.
It's
Star Destroyer, prepare for my arrival,
Yeah, I mean, like you can see all of the places where I'm gonna get uncomfortable with the shows now, in those special editions, right? Like the zombie footage that they're using to splice stuff together. It's just not like both from a purist perspective, like I do want to see the movies as I remember them, and I don't want them to be constantly tinkered with. And also from like the labor perspective, I really hope that James Earl Jones was compensated for his usage in.
I think he has.
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I mean they bill him. He's credited. So I think SAG rules they have to.
Okay, that's fine. And like I hope everybody got paid for Luke's rubbery appearance in Mando.
Well, Mark Hamill's certainly been very supportive of it, so I think he would have said
I have to assume he's getting taken care of then too. I think that was part of my issue with Rise of Skywalker 2, was the way it felt like they shot around the footage that they had of Carrie Fisher.
Yes, that's where you got to do a rewatch, because it's never not going to be an issue the first time. But
yeah, maybe I should give it another chance. I don't know. I
mean, well, you don't have to now. Wait till your kids want to see it. It might be a couple more years, but
okay. So, all right. So we are in the back third of our conversation, and I need to put this in the wind right now.
Okay.
What is the appropriate order to introduce it to the kids?
Oh gosh.
Is it 4, 5 prequels, 6 sequels? Do I put the prequels between Empire and Jedi, or do I do it numerical?
I don't know. I think if it were me, I would just do it chronologically. I understand the purpose of machete order. I think depending on how old your kids are, if they're just like 4 or 5, they're not going to necessarily appreciate the coolness of that. I think you can just. I would probably do chronological, and then if they like them enough, they'll go back and watch them in order. I actually want to watch them all in numerical order myself, because I promise I made a promise to my young self back in like 1984 that one day I'm going to be an old man in the theater and I'm going to watch all 9 Star Wars movies in a row, and I've never done that yet, so I have to do that.
Rise of Skywalker is also the last movie that I saw in theaters before the pandemic.
Wow, that's a gap. The last one I saw before the pandemic was Bloodshot.
Oof, that was bad, right?
It was okay, but it should have been much better than okay.
Yeah, I feel like I probably would have actually heard more about it if it was genuinely bad.
It was kind of pointless. It was kind of like, it was like a slightly better Morbius. I may say that. Damning with faint praise.
Is that damning with faint praise, or is that's not even a backhanded compliment? That's more like a forehanded insult. I don't know.
But okay, Bloodshot has all these CGI swirls around Vin Diesel, and they make sense because they're the nanobots repairing him in their blood.
Right.
Morpheus has CGI swirls around him for no fucking reason whatsoever, just because they thought it looked cool.
I cannot believe that movie executives got trolled into re-releasing it. What a triumph for the working man.
But the thing about Bloodshot is he only looks like Bloodshot for like 5 seconds in the movie, where he resurrects and he goes white for like 5 seconds, and then he's just back to being Vin Diesel again. It's so obvious, like Vin Diesel just did not want to do the makeup or look like the character at all.
You know what? More power to him. The dude has made how much money from Marvel movies where he says the same line over and over and over again to be a CGI tree. Good for him. Get that loot, right? And spend it on petty Instagram posts about The Rock.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about the Hatchet order versus numerical order. Are you going to, when you do that, are you going to do all Star Wars media? Are you going to do...
I can't possibly do all Star Wars media. I think I will do Rogue One and Solo. But
you're not going to do the cartoons?
That's way too long, and the cartoons are also out of order. I don't think I'll ever revisit the Clone Wars fully again. Yeah. No, I think I just got to do a movie marathon. And my only real debate was, do I include Solo and Rogue One? And I think I do. And Obi-Wan, I mean, to me feels like a part of the Skywalker saga now, in a way that The Mandalorian, for example, isn't. But I'm not going to do Obi-Wan. It's just it's too much. My problem as a kid was a movie marathon, and that's what I'm going to keep it as.
A movie marathon is totally reasonable. I also think that you can justify Rogue One in there as part of the story because it is critical to the plot of A New Hope.
Yeah.
I think you could justify Obi-Wan if you really wanted to, but like what 10-year-old Luke and Leia were up to, and Darth Vader being a pissy old bastard are not critical to the story that you see in A New Hope, right?
Well, the addition that I like, if obviously the original timeline is Vader probably thought Obi-Wan was dead. The new version where it's like he knows he's not, but he's forced by Palpatine to just let that grind his gears in the back of his head because Palpatine wants Luke to grow up safely and become his next apprentice and replace his dad. That kind of retroactively becomes a pretty solid plot point. So I don't know.
It does. Actually, I think you do have to do that then, because I don't think I dug too deep into that last scene in my head. But with the knowledge that Palpatine is trying to capture Luke for himself, like it to me it was just Palpatine being a manipulative piece of shit.
Yeah.
And continuing to prey on Anakin's insecurity and make sure that he has this, this little sand in this rock in his shoe, constantly keeping him angry. But it's also trying to make sure that Luke's available for him to snatch up.
And it also sort of explains the whole thing. Well, why didn't they go after him when he's called Luke Skywalker? He's obviously not hiding that well.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't have to be. Palpatine is saying hands off.
Yeah. I also really want to see what happened with Reva. I want to see what her next moves were. I thought she was great. I'm
sure there are plans. I had the same gripe everyone online had, is that if you can just survive a lightsaber impalement that easily, what the fuck with Qui-Gon?
Yeah. Qui-Gon was intentional, right? Qui-Gon died on purpose, just like Obi-Wan did in A New Hope.
You think he had to die? The only way they would train Anakin is if he died?
I think so. I think he must have had a vision of it or something. But I think that he recognized that he needed to die for something in the future. So that's why it killed him when it failed to kill countless others in the same couple of sequences.
That is a better answer, and I like that better than, oh, the Sith are just able to use rage to heal from it, because it's like, give a Jedi permission to use a little bit of rage to heal themselves.
Listen, I'm sorry, but I cannot tell you how much time I spent playing the Dark Forces games with the light side Jedi having the better healing powers.
Mm.
Right? Like, I will dispute this because of my extremely polygonal understanding of Star Wars.
This is not my original idea, but I really did think, because of the way they sort of want to fill in a backstory on everything, I did think that by the end, Leia would get mortally wounded and Obi-Wan would have to force heal her and it would turn his hair white. I really thought they were going to go there.
Would not have shocked me. I think I would have been a little more disappointed had they spent more time on explaining why he turned into Alec Guinness than they did on why he was emotionally already Alec Guinness.
Well, people make a big deal about that, but people's hair goes fully white in like a year. Like I know this from the LA Film Critics Association meetings that I go to. You go every year, and all of a sudden someone comes in whose hair was fully red the year before, and now they're gray.
People see shit, okay? Like, it is not an easy life living as a hermit in the desert.
No.
Right? Like, that man is going to be sunbaked. That man is going to be leathery. He is going to have he's going to put some tread on those tires. And I think folks need to just accept that.
Cassian Andor is next.
Yeah.
They're doing like the equivalent of 2 seasons of it. And I have to say, I don't care for him as a character. I don't really care for Rogue One, and the CGI Tarkin drives me crazy. And in a way that the CGI Luke, I think, is kind of perfected what they were trying to. But the trailer for Andor was pretty freaking cool. So they have my attention again.
Rogue One will always have a special place in my heart because that and the Kieran Gillen comic were where Darth Vader started to become a giant badass again and not the tragic dying dad that he was in Return of the Jedi. And so I will give Rogue One a lot of latitude for all of the things that it screwed up, and it screwed a lot of things up. It was 2/3 of one fairly okay movie and 1/3 of one reasonably bad one, all mashed together. That said, I feel like Cassian Andor is out of the way enough where they might be able to do something interesting with it.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to give it an episode or 2.
Although it's weird. They're partnering him with Mon Mothma. I think that's the storyline. And K2SO is not in it yet. So it's like the sidekick that everybody likes.
Yeah.
They took away.
I don't know. My patience for these franchise shows is also worn so thin. I didn't finish Moon Knight.
That's too bad. There's a kaiju fight in the last episode.
Yeah, but like it bored me to tears in the first 4. And it was bizarre how like completely uninvested in it I was. I'm Ms. Marvel is appointment television for me on the other hand. So like I do like the stuff that I like a lot. But like I'm not giving the bad stuff leeway in the ways that I used to.
I loved Moon Knight. I'd spent, when you leave on a cliffhanger that's like a talking hippo, I'm like, okay, so the next episode, they're obviously going to, write off the talking hippo as a hallucination or whatever, because any other show would. Nope. The entire episode, the talking hippo is a major character, and they're in the Egyptian afterlife. I love the big swings, and then that you have a kaiju fight at the end between a giant crocodile, a giant anthropomorphic crocodile with scorpion hair and a bird skull floating on top of a dude in a suit on top of the pyramids. That works for me. I know it's not the comic. I don't have any fealty to the comic, so that part doesn't matter.
Moon Knight never really connected for me in the comics either. There's the Max Bemis run where the uncle was a Nazi. That one was weird. That one was weird and interesting. But like even the Warren Ellis stuff, the Jeff Lemire stuff, it's not something that was super interesting to me. And like as intensely likable as Oscar Isaac typically is, he just like the nebbish wiener that Stephen Grant is not something Stephen was the wiener one?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Stephen Grant side of him just didn't really do it for me. And it's tough to sit through.
As someone who is half English, half American, I really loved that because it felt like a commentary by an American on what an English person is like, and a very good one. Because his accent was perfect. It was not like D. Bradley Baker or James Arnold Taylor on the Clone Wars. He nailed it, and it's sort of the critique an American secret agent would have of British people as a broad stereotype, which I, as someone who's lived in both places and is part of both, that really connected for me.
Luke, we're going to have to wrap up now. Tell the folks where they can find you on the internet.
Well, the easiest place is Twitter. On Twitter and Instagram, I'm LYT Rules, which is LYTRULES. And that's the easiest because my writing is spread to the four winds. I review movies at AV Club. I review superhero movies and do toy reviews and photo shoots at SuperHeroHype.com. I review festival movies at FilmsGoneWild.com and other indie movies at Cinegods.com, which is CINEGODS. But the easiest thing is to find me on Twitter, and then you'll find links to all that stuff. But it's LYT Rules, the most social media networks.
I can verify that is the easiest place and the most effective place to find all of the various links to Luke. Thank you again, Luke, for joining me today. It was wonderful reconnecting, and I'm really thrilled to talk again.
Well, thank you. Anytime. I think I hired you off of Twitter, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made, hiring one.
I think it was. Oh my God.
Here's the thing. I'll let you talk in a second, but I had just lost a guy named Charles Webb, who was a comics writer, and he was phenomenal. He's one of the best writers I ever had. And I was like, I'm never going to replace this guy. I just lost the best guy I ever had. And then I go on Twitter, I find you, and it's like lightning strikes twice. I got someone who was just as great as the amazing guy I lost. And how'd that happen? I never know. But
I was browsing Twitter on my honeymoon while my wife slept off the jet lag. So thank God she doesn't listen to this, otherwise she'd kill me. But yeah, I got that job on our honeymoon. So, and it has materially impacted the course of my life for the better. So Luke, I cannot thank you enough for setting me on that path and keeping me on that path. And I can't thank you enough for joining me again today.
Well, likewise, I can't thank you enough for supporting that path on my behalf. And I'm happy to do this anytime. This has been great.
We will definitely have you back soon. All right.
And our theme music is by Christopher Piatti.